Hi folks, for those of you who are new here, welcome. In December, we bought an abandoned 250-year-old watermill on an island off the north coast of Scotland. To make logistics easier for ourselves, we also bought an old ex-military truck to clean up. As you can see from the truck being parked outside the mill, it served its purpose fairly well, but it's been a bit of a bumpy journey to get up here. To make the best use of the space in the truck, I built custom shelving for most of our pallets. We had a lot of tools delivered to our rental before we moved, as shipping is fast and free or very cheap to England, but it can be quite expensive up to the island. Items can also take more than a few weeks to get up to the island, so we wanted to have the majority of our tools and equipment we'd need with us ready to start work. We put pretty much everything but our furniture on pallets to make offloading into storage on the island easier. Our friend drove both loads up for us, and an islander we met while visiting the mill in December generously offloaded it for us. By putting pretty much everything on pallets, we could make things at the other end much quicker. These pallets ended up getting pretty heavy and a real struggle to get onto the tail lift without uneven driveway, especially in the middle of the night. The truck had to go on a weighbridge on the first trip before boarding the ferry and came up with 60 kilos of weight to spare, with half a tank of fuel. I'm pretty proud of how closely I guesstimated the first load's mass. With the truck at capacity, Andy set off for Bonnie, Scotland. Things didn't really go to plan though. In the far north of Scotland at about 5 AM, the truck blew a front tyre. Andy had set off for his second day of driving about an hour earlier, and I'd still not made it to bed after an early start the previous day when Andy departed the house. As I was getting up to go to bed, Andy called. In a bit of shock and desperate for help. Thankfully, he was okay and the truck was still on 5 wheels and on the road. After rescheduling his morning ferries, I waited for mechanics and garages to open. I had to find a replacement tyre of the right size and someone who could provide roadside assistance for the truck. None of the garages in any sort of remotely nearby town could help at all. Keep in mind, this is a fully laden 7.5 ton truck. One of 2 tyre companies in the north had a suitable tyre, but their driver was off sick, so they couldn't fit it at the roadside. I ended up finding a fantastic agricultural maintenance company who were able to send someone to jack the truck up, get the wheel off, take it to the tyre fitter, and then come back and replace it. The mechanic they sent very helpfully informed Andy the radiator had a small leak, but it couldn't have been too bad as the fluid level wasn't too low, especially given the distance he had driven so far. I suggested Andy follow the mechanic back to their workshop to give the truck a once over so he'd have the confidence in his ability to get to our island and back. That's where the bad news got much worse. When the tyre blew, it took out the fan shroud and radiator in a catastrophic way. At the workshop, the scope of the leak became much more apparent. Andy wasn't going anywhere without a new radiator. The closest radiator was more than 5 hours away in Inverness, and by now it was after midday on a Friday. Most accommodation in the north of Scotland is small bed and breakfasts, and there are not many hotel chains around. So with COVID restrictions, there wasn't going to be anywhere for Andy to stay until a new radiator could arrive on Monday. The mechanics were able to send one of their lads down to meet the supplier halfway to save time in collecting the new radiator, and managed to get it fitted in time for Andy to make the evening ferry. What champions! Needless to say, this was an incredibly expensive tyre blowout.
Scrubster, we're here. I don't believe it. I don't bloody believe it. What a nightmare.
Thankfully, Andy was able to catch the ferry and stay at accommodation on the main island, then continue onwards to the island the Watermill is on the next day.
Beautiful. I'm slowing down just to take a look.
After unloading, he caught the return ferry to the main island again, in time to board the ferry back to Scotland that would depart the next morning. Once the truck was returned, we finished packing up the house, way behind schedule and with nowhere near enough sleep in the process. We had another problem though. The truck was full at its weight limit and we still had lots of random stuff left in the house that needed to go with us. So Andy's going to be renting a van and doing a third trip up to the island with the last of our possessions and tools. The truck, as a commercial vehicle, isn't really cost effective to put on the ferries without a full load, so renting a van for just the last few items works out much easier. We were on a schedule though, so it was our turn to drive up through the picturesque mountains, rivers, lochs, and stunning towns of Scotland. We were a bit early for our ferry, so we headed a little further up the coast to steal a view of the islands across the Firth. After a couple of ferries and a short drive, the Watermill, our future home. The truck has proven to be incredibly convenient as a large, dry storage location as we're cleaning the mill. The mill is still pretty dirty and we're doing a lot of steam cleaning, which is a bit of a it gets worse before it gets better situation most of the time. Having a clean, dry place for our construction materials and expensive tools is invaluable. In our next video, we're jumping right into a 1 month update, covering the previous 4 weeks all at once so we can get everyone up to speed on the status of the mill. Primarily, the last month has been hugely satisfying cleaning, which has made a dramatic difference to the mill. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified as soon as we release the video. We love seeing your comments, so feel free to leave us a message. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.